my friends. Welcome back to another story in the life of the old-time rock and roller. Now, today's story will cover 2013 through 2014. We've got a lot of things to go over. In 2013, I finally started on the video book. Well, it wasn't a video book at that time. It was just a manuscript. In the immortal words of blues singer-songwriter John Lee Hooker, one night I was lying down. I heard Papa tell Mama, "Let that boy boogie woogie. It's in him. It's got to come out." And John Lee said, "I felt so good, and I went on boogieing just the same." So I had some new songs on the burner, and I called Ray about doing a writing session at his place in Vallejo, California. And this is where the story will begin. So I booked a plane flight to San Jose, and I was due to arrive in time for Ray's 63rd birthday. I had a layover in Phoenix. My old keyboard player and first Kung Fu student, Brian Burkhoff, met me at the airport. We had a cup of coffee and talked like a couple of mad hatters because I hadn't seen him since he flew out here to play piano on the Nothing Wrong with Dreamin' CD. So I arrived in San Jose in a torrential rain, and I had forgot to pack my raincoat. So I got really wet going to Ray's house, but I arrived, we caught up on things, and finally about 4:30 in the morning, we went to bed. Now the next day, as I mentioned, it was his birthday, and he had a gig booked. Before I went out there, he said, "Hey, which record should I relearn, and we'll play that at the gig?" And I said, "How about What's It Gonna Take?" And he said, "Great." So we played the night, and he and Diane, his wife, who played bass, said, "Boy, it sure was good to hear the right solos played on these songs once more." So we had a great time. We played many different places, and we culminated on a brand new club that was opening up, and it was broadcast live. The show was live. They interviewed us before the set, and we played really well. It was a lot of fun. Well, on the break, a lady came up to me and said, "Hey, I've been following your career for the last 12 years, and I'm a big fan of yours." And I said, "Oh, that's great. Nice to meet you." And then Ray came over and said, hey, come here. I got somebody I want you to meet." I said, "Okay." So I went over and he introduced me to an attractive woman who had sort of a, what did they call those, Chippendale dancers, yeah, with her, who I couldn't quite understand the connection at first. But she said, "Hey, I've been following your career the last 8 years. I think you're really incredible. And by the way, I make $500,000 a year. Let me buy you a drink." I said, "Okay." So we had a couple of drinks, and she explained to me that the guy with her was her paid boy toy that went out to escort her and make sure she made it home safely when she got too drunk. So I said, "Okay, nice to meet you." And I posed for a few pictures, and she asked me for a kiss. And I obliged and then left and went back to Raymond's house. But not exactly straight to Ray's house. Ray knows every nook and cranny, every little bar on every side street in San Francisco, Vallejo, the whole Bay Area. So we stopped at a half a dozen places, and he finally took me to some theater that he had the keys to. And he said, "Let's book a gig here and bring the band out." And I was impressed. It was a very nice theater. Well, as the week progressed, I noticed that we weren't really getting any songwriting work done. And finally, it was Monday, and I think I had just one more day left. And I said, Ray, we've got to do some work. And he looked at me very straight-faced, and he said, my people haven't worked on Mondays in 1,000 years. And he was dead serious. So I was a little frustrated with that, but we had a nice day. We got back to his house and we got into a bit of an argument over things. And it actually ended so badly that we didn't speak to each other for 6 years. So I left his place and I thought about going up to Point Reyes to visit Dave Hayes, who plays bass with Van Morrison. But I couldn't, his old phone number was disconnected. I didn't think to email him. I called Mark Levine, my old bass player in the Kathi McDonald band, and in Slingshot. Mark was on his way to a rehearsal. So I just booked a hotel at San Jose, lay back, thought about everything that happened. I was tired, and I flew home. Going 23, 24 hours without sleep, and then with the 3-hour time difference, it knocks my ass in the dirt, okay? I just can't take it anymore. Well, Kaylon and I started working up an acoustic duet, and we played several shows, just the two of us, and it was a lot of fun. Later in 2013, I got a call from Tony Carey, and he said, hey, I've got a couple of weeks open on my schedule. Why don't you come out here and I'll throw a tour together for us? I said, okay, sounds great. So I jumped on a plane and flew out and met Tony in Germany. Now, our first gig was in Stuttgart, and Stuttgart is a beautiful old city. We met Martin Hammerle there, and Martin and I met when I had flown to Germany in 2003, and Tony and I and Martin played in Austria with Melvin Taylor, with Angus Bangus on the bass. And Melvin said, if you ever come to Chicago, you can play with me anytime. So I had already played with Martin, and I knew he was a great guy. So he joined us, and we had a rented Volkswagen station wagon. We just threw the gear in the back and took off. So here we are in Stuttgart, and right in the center of the city was a beautiful park, and there were hundreds of students just walking around. It was a beautiful day, the sun was shining, and we set up. It was a great day for a live concert. We had a super time. We went back to the hotel, and the next day before we left, I took the time to go visit the Porsche factory, or the Porsche factory. I saw a lot of incredible cars. Well, we got in the car and we drove to Prague in Czechoslovakia. And we played an impromptu gig there. Later, we went to the Charles Bridge, which is an old stone Gothic bridge. Now, this bridge was amazing. It was covered with people. There were artists, there were crafts, there was like a gypsy playing Django Reinhardt stuff, there was a New Orleans jazz band on there, there was a tribute to John Lennon. I mean, every couple of feet on either side of the bridge had some type of incredible thing going on. It was very historical, and there were all of these ancient gargoyles and dragons and lions and everything carved into this stone bridge. It was fascinating, really. We got to the other side. We were really tired and thirsty. So Tony said, let's get a beer. We ordered a beer for the three of us, and the mugs were like this tall. It was unbelievable. There were a couple of Russian girls sitting next to us, and I knew a few words in Russian. So we said hi, exchanged pleasantries, and then we made it back to the car, and we saw the Prague Castle and the lights of the city, as we drove on to our next gig in Germany. We stayed at bed and breakfasts all through the countries, and the morning breakfast spread was really unique, not American at all. You'd have to go there to experience it. Our next stop was in Poland. Now, Martin knew German and Austrian, and Tony knew English and German, and I knew English and a little Spanish, a little Chinese, and a little Russian, but none of us knew any Polish. And when we got to the outskirts of town, we stopped at one of those old Soviet-style Checkpoint Charlie places. I just had a real Cold War vibe going. It was pretty interesting. We stopped for gas, and the gas price was like 4,000, whatever the currency, per liter. I thought, wow, this is going to be an expensive fill-up. So we drove on, and we found like a county fair. We were really hungry, and we managed to buy a whole chicken and something to drink. So we sat there and we devoured it, cleaned up a little bit, took out our instruments, and just like we were part of the fair, we played for an hour, packed up, headed back to Germany. Now, we were stopped at some club in eastern Germany, and we were just finishing our sound check. We went back to our table, and there was nobody in the club but maybe two people. And one of them was a guy, maybe in his late 20s, early 30s, and he walked up to me with a copy of my Decade of Blues CD. And he said, "Can you sign this for me?" And I said, "Sure." "How did you know I'd be here? Who are you?" I mean, it was just unbelievable to be so far from home in a completely unknown place on really an unadvertised tour, and somebody found out about it and showed up with a CD for me to sign. So that was great. Well, there were a couple of performers, and then we got up on the stage. We played about 3 or 4 numbers, and we dragged it out. It was about 20 minutes. And Tony said, I said, "What should we do? I think there's some other people that want to play." And he said, "Keep playing, do another one." So I did another one, and then he said, "Do another one." And then finally I noticed that there were some musicians in the front of the stage that were saying, "Hey, other people want to play too. You guys need to wrap this up." So we finally quit, and Tony went over to the bar and started talking to a promoter and having a few drinks. Well, I was there by myself with Martin, and some of the crowd was a little bit angry because we took so much time. And I just said, "Hey, Tony's the boss here. He booked this. I don't know anything. I'm just following his lead. He's right over there at the bar. Why don't you go talk to him?" And they said, "Okay." And Martin said, "I'm going to go wait in the car." And I sort of hid out for a minute, and then after they left, I went over to Tony and I said, "Hey, Pard, we need to be moving on. Martin's in the car. It's all loaded. We're in the driveway. Come on, let's go." So after maybe another drink, he finally acquiesced, and we jumped in the car and we drove off. We drove on. We went to the Ukraine, to Odessa, and we played there. And after the show, I saw that there was an opera called Iolanta at the famous opera house there. Now, the Odessa Opera House is one of the most famous in Europe. My dad was a big opera fan, and I knew he'd kill me if I told him that I was there and didn't go to the opera. So I took it in, and it was an incredible experience. We finally made it back to Germany, and it was our last night there. Tony said, "Come into the studio and let's play something." So we went in the studio, he turned on the machine, And the two of us jammed for about 20 minutes. And he said, let's call this Howie's Last Ride. I said, okay, super. As 2013 ended, I was dying to make another record. I called Andrew Black in Atlanta and told him I wanted to do a new record. And he said, why don't you come down here and we'll talk about it. So I flew to Atlanta to where he was doing a solo gig, and we had dinner together and we discussed the studio plans. And I told him that Tony was willing to come from Germany to record with us. So he said, oh, this is great. Here's my available dates in February 2014. So it was a nice time. He got up on the stage, and then my old Tuesday night Kung Fu instructor, Rob Andes, and his wife, Susan, came in to see me and Andrew. And Rob started buying me shots of Don Julio. I bought him a shot of Patron. He said, oh, this is the best. You got to have this. So we drank a lot of tequila and had a really good time. Well, I called Ron Benner at Dogwood Studio and told him that we were going to record a new record. He was very excited about it. Tony had called me after I gave him Andrew's dates, and we settled on February 8th, 2014. I had an all-star cast. John McKnight on the drums, Lee Gammon on the bass. Jon Liebman was going to come in and play a couple of songs on the harmonica. And my friend Daryll Cobb was going to come in and play a country song. It didn't really belong on the album, but I love Daryll. He's a great friend, and I just wanted to do something nice for him. The date was set, and Lee and I drove down the night before. When we checked into the hotel, the intercom was playing Sweet Mary, I'm Coming Home. There I was going home back to Atlanta, and they were playing a song from the Wadsworth Mansion, a band I was in 1971 and 72. Tony and his girlfriend, Marion, were staying at a nice hotel in Atlanta, and he said, let's get together and have a pre-studio dinner meeting. So I told Andrew, and Andrew agreed to meet us, and we all went out to Fat Matt's Rib Shack. You've got to go there if you're in Atlanta. They have the greatest chicken and ribs you ever have tasted. And they have a little blues band there too. So we had a wonderful dinner meeting and pre-session planning. Now I forgot to mention earlier, when Tony had given me his dates, he said, okay, how many days rehearsal are we going to have? And I said, none. We're just going to go in and record the record. That's how I roll. And he said, okay. So when we showed up at the studio and we walked in, I introduced Tony to Ron, and then John McKnight arrived. Now Tony had mixed John's drums on the Colorblind album, and he knew what a great drummer John was. So John said, hey, nice to meet you. And Tony shook his hand and said, I already know what you can do. And that was a big compliment. We got started and we worked on Andrew's songs first. I had 9 originals that he was going to sing. Later, I asked him, Andrew, how did you prepare for this? And he said, I listened to the songs that you sent me, and I thought back, who does this remind me of? And I went and listened to 1 or 2 vocalists approach to that kind of a feel for that type of song. And so he just made little song notes next to the lyrics, you know, sing this like Paul Rogers or sing this like whoever, you know. But he did a hell of a job. Well, about 6:30, and we had been going since 10:30 in the morning. We started early. we had all of Andrew's tracks finished. All that remained were 2 of Jon Liebman's and Daryll Cobb's songs. So when John got there, we were ready for a change of pace. Ron got him set up in the vocal booth, and we played V8 Ford Blues first. Tony's girlfriend, Marion, who he's married to now, had the foresight to run her camera and film John's solo, then my solo, and then Tony's solo. I'll play that right now. It's not the greatest quality, but you can catch the feel.
Don't get big boy.
Get low.
Come down and dig your grave. I'm gonna be standing right there watching when it throw that cold down to your face. I'll be down to your brain.
Yes, Lord.
Yeah. Wow. That's
What did you think about that? It was wicked, huh? Man, I love John's playing. Jon Liebman said thanks so much, and he packed up his stuff and he took off. Now, it was time to record Daryll Cobb's country song. He played it maybe halfway through it, and we said, okay, we got it. He said, roll tape. And Ron rolled the tape, and Daryll sang it, and we played it, and it came out great. The whole recording session took 11 and a half hours. And when we left, we had a rough mix, and we were feeling really great about it. So I dropped Tony off at his hotel, him and Marion, and they were staying right across from the Roxy at the same place that Vivian Lee and Clark Gable stayed at after the premiere of Gone with the Wind. It was a bit historic. The next day, Tony flew back to Germany, and Lee and I drove back to Richmond. I needed a graphic artist. Tony turned me on to a guy named Ed Unitsky, who had been doing Tony's album covers, and they came out great. So I sent him a bunch of photos and so forth and let him run with the concept. And Ed did an incredible job. I'll show you his pictures here. But basically, since I was from Atlanta, he made the city an old Civil War town just before it was burnt down to the ground on Sherman's March to the Sea. So thank you, Ed. You did a great job. And thank you, Tony, for all your hard work. Ron was supposed to Dropbox the files of the session to Tony so he could put his magic on it. Well, almost 2 weeks went by and I hadn't heard from Ron. I was starting to get a little nervous. And I sent him a note and I said, hey, Ron, everything okay? And he wrote back and he said, yeah, I just sent all the files to Tony. He said, but what happened was after you guys left, my house took a lightning strike and the entire session was erased. What? He said, so I spent the next week learning how to restore things, and I got all the data back and I got the files to Tony. Whew, that was a close one. Well, Tony mixed it up, and he'd send me the mixes, and I'd say, let's change this. I'd send it to Ron. Ron would make the changes. We went into a circle, and while we were doing that, I hired one of the best record promoters around, a guy named Frank Roszak, who was recommended to me by Doug Ketchum, who is a DJ, blackjack, on WRFG. So I talked to Frank and we worked it out, and he sent me his mailing labels, and he sent me 112 labels for magazines and everything. I got it all to the press. They were all shipped to my house. I got them in the mail because I was shooting for a June 6th release date. And we got it out there to all the DJs on June 6th, all across the world. And the record did great, and the reviews were fabulous. In fact, in the month of July, we were #1 on the WRFG blues charts. Well, Tinsley Ellis, a fellow guitarist from Atlanta who's on Alligator Records, he had a release around the same time, and in August, he made it to the #1 spot and kept us at #2. Well, the WRFG Labor Day Blues Barbecue was coming around, and I was asked to perform. Well, if you recall, on one of my videos back in 2004, we played at the Blues Barbecue at the Masquerade with Leon Russell. It was a great show. So this was a big honor, and it was going to be held at the Pavilion in Piedmont Park, which is the biggest park in Atlanta. So I had Lee lined up, and I was planning on John McKnight, but he got a last-minute gig. So he turned me on to a replacement drummer who did an incredible job with no rehearsal. And there was a harmonica player, Jon Liebman couldn't make it, but named Brian Gordon. I met Brian Gordon at one of our shows when he came up and asked if he could sit in on the harmonica with us. So I hadn't seen Brian since he moved to Atlanta about 6 years prior. He had gotten a lot better. So it was a hot day, and we were ending the show. Barry Richmond was on the show. Barry, one of my favorite guitar players in the world. He did an amazing solo and played with his band. And then finally we got up and we played our show. And here's some of that live footage now.
We're from Austin, Texas, but we were born to play the blues. Riding on the blues train, looking back. Riding on the blues train, rolling down the trail. Gonna hop this lightning, gonna ride the wind. The blues is the feeling I never want to end. When I play my guitar, every night and day, not a better feeling than the blues I can't say. Riding on the blues train, rolling down the trail. Riding on the blues train, never looking back. If I could get happy Come tumbling down. easy. I don't even have to touch my guitar, man. He's doing all the heavy lifting, am I right? Gonna try one.
What did you think about that? It was wicked, huh? When we got off, then it was nighttime and Tinsley Ellis came on to close the show. But we had a great time, and the record, Turnaround Blues, just blew off the charts. It was an incredible 2-year period. Now, one little anecdote. In the spring, when I was home listening to the mixes and had all of the final mixes and was just about ready to give Ron the okay, Kaylon said, I know somebody who's got a perfect blues voice. Her name is Becky Wright, and she needs to sing backup on Turnaround Blues. I said, well, I trust your judgment. Go get her. So she found Becky, went and brought her to the house. I had everything set up. She walked in, I handed her a margarita. I said, hey, I'm Forrest McDonald, nice to meet you. Put these headphones on, and I want you to sing here something like this. And she said, okay. So I ran the tape, she sang it, it fit like a glove, and I mailed it to Ron, and it was included on the record. Half a dozen months after that, I read on Facebook, she said, I'm thinking about putting a new band together. Well, Kaylon said, you know, if you want to play some serious blues, you should enter the International Blues Competition and have Becky sing with you. And I said, all right, that sounds like a good idea. So I called Becky and I pitched it to her. And she said, all right, let's do this. And that will be in the next story. We got into September and the Yardbirds came to town. Well, Jimmy McCarty, who I met in 1967 with the Yardbirds, with Jimmy Page, was the only original member in the band, and that's why he got to use the name. I talked to him after his set, and I said, yeah, I remember when you and Henry and Jimmy and Keith and all, we were on your bus and all this. And he said, well, you know, Henry is still with me. Let's go say hi to him. In October, early October, right around her birthday, October 3rd, Kathi McDonald passed away. Now, we had played together in the Kathi McDonald band. She had the Insane Asylum album out on Capitol Records. She had played with Leon Russell and Long John Baldry and Big Brother and the Holding Company. So it was a sad day. What can I say? So I did a video on my time working with her as a tribute. That's going to wrap up 2013, 2014. It was a big year. San Francisco with Ray, the acoustic duet with Kaylon and myself, playing with Mick and Lee, going to Germany and touring all over there, having Tony come here and record a great record. It was just an incredible time. So, my friends, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you feel like it, please like and subscribe. Most of all, subscribe. We're just under 1,000 subscribers. And once we hit 1,000, we go up a notch in the Google search engines and in the YouTube search engines. That way more people can see more of these great videos. So keep some love in your heart. Always keep a song in your head. And I will see you down the story highway on the next adventure of the old-time rock and roller. Let's take it out with some music. So long, my friends.